Hello everyone, and welcome to the session number 8 for Business Research Methods course, which is going to be about the questionnaire design. Last time we talked about the data collection for qualitative and quantitative, and we said for quantitative data collection we are going to use a very effective tool, which is questionnaire design. So we are going to talk about the building of and constructing of the questionnaire design and questionnaire for business research methods. So at the end of this course, the ILOs, or the intended learning outcomes, are going to be that the students should be able to explain the significance of decisions about questionnaire design, and also the students should be able to summarize guidelines for questions that make good questionnaires, and also the students should be able to describe how proper sequence of questions improve the questionnaire, and also should discuss how to design a questionnaire layout. And also one of the most important thing is how to describe criteria for pre-testing the questionnaire, so how they can test the questionnaire. So according to that, the content of the session is going to be starting with an introduction about the questionnaire design, then talking about the questionnaire quality and design, the basic consideration, what we have to consider in order to prepare a good questionnaire, the wordings of questions, which is the items or the questions composing the questionnaire, and also we will talk about the guidelines for constructing questions. There are some guidelines the researcher has to follow in order to construct good questions, because the good questionnaire is the one with good questions. Then we'll talk about the best question sequence, and also the questionnaire layout, the face of the questionnaire, and also the questionnaire pre-testing, which is the last issue we'll talk about. As we know, and we talked earlier, the questionnaire is one of the main tools of the quantitative data collection. So it is a tool of data collection for quantitative data, and it is a vehicle used to pose the questions that the researcher wants respondents to answer. It is part of this or part of surveys by which we prepare some questions and then distribute to respondents and get some answers. The questionnaire design is a systematic process in which the researcher contemplates various question formats, considers a number of factors characterizing the survey at hand, ultimately words the various questions very carefully, and organize the questionnaire layout. So when we talk about questionnaire design, we talk about how we can build and construct a good questionnaire to collect accurate data from the field or from the respondents. Last time when we talked about data, primary data and secondary data in the session number 7, we talked about the questionnaire as one of the techniques or one of the tools or instruments of data collection for primary data collection. So when we do research, we have so many choices when we talk about the primary data collection. So either we construct our own questionnaire, and we have to follow a lot of rules and a lot of steps we will talk about today in order to prepare a good data collection tool, or we can adopt so either to construct a questionnaire, or to adopt a questionnaire used in some of the tested research papers or research work, and this is very difficult because it cannot fit my objectives, and it might not fit fully my research problem. Or I can adapt questionnaire used by others, by different researchers, or depending on theories, and then adopt some of the items and then develop a new one dependent on a previous one. So what we will talk about today is how to construct a good questionnaire, a new questionnaire, which is the first choice or first option here for the researchers. So there are some functions for the questionnaire or of the any questionnaire. The first function of a questionnaire is translates the research objectives into specific questions. So I have a research problem. This research problem is going to be translated into objectives. How I can measure these objectives and find out whether or fulfill these objectives is going to be by translating these objectives into items to be asked for the respondents to be asked, and these items are going to be the questions in the questionnaire. The second function of the questionnaire is standardize those questions and response categories. So these questions must be standardized. That means followed some criteria or standards. That means standardize the questions which is going to be used for collecting data. The third function of the questionnaire is serves as permanent record of research. So it is a record of data, and is this type of record is permanent in the research. It can also speed up the process of data analysis, because when using questionnaire, I can use statistical methods of data analysis. So I can code whatever answer is going to be collected using the questionnaire, and then get them entered in the SPSS, for example, or any statistical program or software, and then it's going to ease and speed this phase. It can also serve as the basis for reliability and validity. This is very important. So I might just write some questions and distribute to the respondents and get some answers, but I might not be sure, or I cannot be sure about the validity, whether the questions are reflecting what it should be asked, or the reliability, which is whether these questions are the answers of the respondents are going to be free from random error. So the items must be consistent, and this is going to be available in the questionnaire, because I am going to test the validity and reliability for the questionnaire before even sometimes even I distribute it, so I can make sure that whatever data is collected is going to be accurate. Mostly people say a questionnaire is only good or as good as the questions it asks. So we can say this questionnaire is good, this questionnaire is clear, because if the questions are good and if the questions phrased in a clear way. Otherwise, if the questions are not phrased in a good way, so it's going to be again not a good questionnaire. So a good questionnaire appears to be as easy to compose as a good poem. That means when people are going to read this questionnaire, they will read something which is very easy to them to understand. They are not going to be misled by some of the questions, whatever information needed by the researcher. They are going to understand the question and answer it clearly and accurately. But at the same time, it is very hectic work. It is usually the result of long painstaking work. It's not an easy job. So when you spend much time to prepare a good questionnaire, of course you are going to guarantee getting accurate data. So the accuracy of the data is the target of any researcher. So if you are going to prepare a good questionnaire, it will take a lot of time and it's going to be very hectic work, but you can guarantee getting good data. We have some major decisions when we design the questionnaire we have to take or we have to go through. It's phrased here in terms of in a term of questions. So what should be asked? We talked about questionnaire as group of questions. So these questions, what are these questions? What should be asked? So something related to the research problem and something related to the objectives. This is very important to be also the beginning in order to evaluate the questionnaire. The second question is, how should each question be phrased? Whether it's going to be in a form of open questions or fixed alternatives questions. The third is, in what sequence should the question be arranged? This is also very important, the sequence from general to specific, easy to difficult, because remember, you are going to distribute the questionnaire to volunteers, to people who are not going to be paid for that. So you have to prepare an easy a questionnaire, clear, and it's not going to burden them. What questionnaire layout will best serve the research objectives? The layout is also very important. And number 5 is, how should the questionnaire be pre-tested? So does the questionnaire need to be revised or not? So for the first question, we have two main things. We have to test the questionnaire relevancy and also the questionnaire accuracy. This is to answer the first question, which is what should be asked. So for questionnaire relevancy, solve the business problem is obtained. This questionnaire must be relevant to the business problem, to the research problem, and also to the research objective or objectives. Otherwise, it is going to be problematic if you are going to distribute a questionnaire collecting data which is not related to the research problem. So it's a waste of time, and it's not going to serve the accuracy of the research, because, as I said, research is dependent on input data in order to get good output data, and the process is going to be the methodology. Okay, so if the input is accurate, you can guarantee that the findings and output is going to be accurate and going to be clear. The second point is that you should discard the unnecessary information. So unnecessary information shouldn't be collected. It's a wastage of resources and time, and it's confusion sometimes. So, for example, for the first part of the questionnaire, which is going to be demographics, if there is a chance for you to get the demographics from the company or the target companies or the target organizations as secondary data, you can take it. So you can save the time for the respondent, so he can focus on less questions and give you accurate answers. The second one is the accuracy. So relevancy is matching the questions with the research problem. The accuracy is motivate the respondents to cooperate. As we know, when we distribute the questionnaire, we cannot it's not in our hand to make sure that the data or the answers of the respondents are accurate or not. But in some of the ways, we can guarantee this accuracy to some extent. So making a motivating questionnaire, easy phrased questionnaire, using a very simple language, short questions, is going to motivate the respondent to answer or give accurate data. The respondents tend to cooperate when the subject of research is interesting. This is very important. So make the questions interesting. Start with the easy ones. Start with the interesting ones, so you can grab the attention and grab their cooperation for this questionnaire filling. Avoid difficult and threatening questions. Some of the questions are considered by some of the respondents like threatening questions. So don't ask these questions, or rephrase these questions in a way that it is not going to be threatening. So if you are talking about job satisfaction in the company and you are doing the research in your company, you have to not to ask questions like your relation with your supervisor is not good, there are some problems. So phrase it in a way that it's going to encourage the respondents to give you an accurate answer. Asking men or gentlemen about their salaries is also in some of the cultures not a good question. So you have to write range. Your salary is from, for example, $500 to for example, 1,000 US dollars. Okay, which is the first choice. Second choice, for example, is 1,000 to 1,500. Blah blah blah. Asking sometimes the ladies about the age, exact age, is also sometimes not preferable by them. So you might put also age. The age is from this age to this age, and it's going to be better. The also most important thing here for the accuracy guarantee is that phrase or write a letter at the beginning of the questionnaire for the respondents to tell him that or tell her that all the data collected from you is going to be confidential. Nobody is going to use it for the purpose of other than the research, and you might ask the respondents not to write his name or her name. This is going to be encouraging for them because they will give you accurate data. Otherwise, they are going to pretend that everything is okay, and they are not going to give you a good and accurate answer, especially when the issue is about any variable in the organizational behavior. The second thing is phrasing the questions. We talked about two types of questions: open-ended questions, which is the WH questions. Questions needs some answers and there's no options. And the second one is what we call fixed alternative questions. So let's start with the open-ended question. Essay questions, short answer questions, are considered open-ended question. The advantages of this is, the first advantage is particularly beneficial in exploratory research, a research in which we are going to explore whether there is a problem or not, especially when the range of the responses is not known. The second advantage is identify which word, phrases people spontaneously give. So from the frequency of the answers, we might get some of the word that is recurrent or occur again and again, so you can focus on it for other research. It's valuable in pilot studies. So in some of the studies, before I start the main study, I go for pilot study. The pilot study is a trial study to make sure that the objectives are okay, the population is suitable. So it's very good for the open-ended questions. The disadvantage or the disadvantages of this type of question is that high cost of administering open-ended response questions. It will take time, it's costly because different answers will take a lot of resources. The possibility of bias, which will influence the answer, because it is open, you are going to ask people to write whatever they like or give answers for different answers. Bias introduced by articulate individuals' longer answers. This is also one of the disadvantages, because when there are longer answers, the bias is going to be there. the respondent is might be give you a misleading data or information. The second type of questions is what we call fixed alternative questions, which is closed questions, questions with already made scale or answers. The advantages of this, of course, it requires less questionnaire skill, but it requires more or much skill in building the questionnaire. But less questionnaire skill is needed for this. The one who is going to ask is going to prepare the options, so the respondent is going to take less time to answer. So from the respondents, because the answers are there in the form of options. Last time we talked about the scales. One of the scales is Likert Scale. So choices like strongly agree, neutral, disagree, and also what we call strongly disagree. These are available options, so the respondent is going to either check here or here, so the answers are available and many options, so the respondent is going to take no time in answering the question. Provide comparability of answers. So we are going to, in the analysis, is going to be like calculating the means or the averages. The disadvantages of this type of questions is researchers may be unaware of all potential responses. So he might need some other answer and it's not there. And also tendency of respondents to choose more prestigious or socially acceptable alternatives. Some of the alternatives are not socially acceptable, for example. So to develop a questionnaire, there are no hard and fast rules. We don't have rules. We have only guidelines. So questionnaires are different. It depends on some of the guidelines. There is no certain template that people need to have and just fill in. So different questionnaires can be prepared used guidelines. So developing a questionnaire needs some guidelines in order to prepare good questions, because as we said at the beginning, the good questionnaire is a reflection of good questions it asked. So the first thing as a guidance for preparing a questionnaire or developing a questionnaire is avoid complexity. When you phrase the questions, make it simple. Use the conversational language. Use the language that the respondents will understand. So do not make the item or the question very long with a language which cannot be understood by the respondent. Make it simple. Use the language that they understand. The second one is avoid leading and loaded questions. We have two types of questions that can mislead the respondents and make the answer not accurate. So the leading question is a question that suggests or implies certain answers, and in this type of questions, the first half, for example, is going to lead to a certain answer, and this must be avoided. For example, if I'm asking about I'm doing a research about the wages and job satisfaction or job performance, for example. So one of the questions is going to be, do you think in this situation or nowadays, any difficult situation nowadays, employees needs an increase in the salary or an increase in the wages? Of course, most of them they will say yes, and they will say strongly agree, because the first introduction led most of the people, most of the respondents to go for strongly agree. So make the question or the item direct, not to be leaded. The loaded question is a question suggests socially desirable answer or emotionally changed. So if there is if you are testing the layoff in a company, in a certain company, and your question is going to be, what do you think the old people or the young people do you think that the old people who spend many years in the company are going to be the first people to be laid off from the company? So here in the beginning you are talking about the old people who spend life in the company, so emotionally you loaded this item and socially loaded this item, so most of the answers is going to be in favor of this question or answer positively. Another point in developing questionnaire is avoid ambiguity. This is very, very important point. So be as specific as possible. Don't use words with which is ambiguous. That means words with let's say different meanings, or question, don't phrase a question with different answers. So make your question specific, and it will take only certain answers, okay, and direct the respondents to give you the accurate and right answer. Another point is in developing the questionnaire is avoiding double paralleled questions or items. This is also very problematic. Sometimes the researcher is going to phrase a questionnaire, a question or an item in which it's going to be consistent of two ideas. The respondent might agree with the first idea, but he might not agree with the second idea. So every item or every question is going to talk about one idea. So a question will ask about one idea. So a question that may induce bias because it covers two issues at once. So at the same time asking about two issues. This is an example. So between you and your deputy who chair most of the department meetings. So you are comparing between you and your deputy. So I chair them all, I chair most of them, I chair over half of them. So there is here a double paralleled question. So ask about only you or the deputy and make the question here not paralleled. Another point is avoid, or the last or before last, it's a point in developing the questionnaire is avoid making assumptions. So don't make assumptions in the questionnaire. So given Ahmed's skill level at gift wrapping, so this is an assumption. You are introducing about Ahmed that is skill level at gift wrapping. So you are guiding these people or the respondents to assumption. The last point is avoid a burdensome question. Burdensome question is a question which needs time and effort to be answered by the respondents. So the questions that will tax respondents' memory. It needs time, needs to think. Most of the people will not answer these types of questions. They avoid it. So from the beginning, avoid these types of questions. So this is an example. The example is asking open questions. So if possible, make your questionnaire and a fixed alternative questionnaire or questionnaire with closed questions. This will save time and will free the respondents from the burdensome questions. Okay, so continuing with the questionnaire design and guidelines, the question sequence is very, very important to make to grab the attention of the respondents and make it easy to answer these questions. As I said, they are volunteers, so you need to encourage them to answer. So the first one is funnel technique. General question before specific, easy before difficult. So we have here two types. Filtering questions. So what we call the order bias. Question number 1, are you currently registered as unemployed? So yes or no. If no, proceed to the question number 3, so you save the time for the respondent. The question layout is also very important. So the questions must be neat, attractive layout with clear instruction, and also divided into sections for different categories of variables. So you start the first section A is going to be about demographics. The second question, section B, is going to be items or questions about the DV, dependent variable, and section C is going to be about the IV or the IVs. So the items are going to be divided according to the themes or according to the variables. Do not split one question over 2 pages because it's going to be answered twice. It's not going to be understood by the respondents. Make the layout short, brief, and simple. Do not use long questions. And also, mostly the questionnaire must not exceeding 60 items to 70 items. More than this is going to be difficult to be answered, and the last half of the questionnaire is not going to be carrying or giving accurate data. So the best questionnaire is between 20 to 40 items. This is very important for the respondents and for the researchers to get accurate data. It should have properly worded cover letter explaining the objectives of the study and appropriate information about the survey. So you write a letter telling the respondents about the objective of this research, the topic, the research topic or problem, and also asking them politely to answer, and tell them that the answers are going to be only for research purposes and nothing else. And this one is going to be encouraging to the respondents. There are some other types of the questionnaire, which is electronic. Some software programs can help in designing the questionnaire and in distributing the questionnaire, which is computer assisted questionnaire design. So software programs allow users to use computer technology to develop and disseminate questionnaires. And also the advantages of this is very easier and also faster, because this will collect the data in very short time, and friendlier, so it can be answered using your mobile phone or the respondent's mobile phone or laptop or a desktop or even an iPad. So it is going to be easy to use this type of technique better than distributing a paper work or a paper questionnaire, paper-based questionnaire. More flexible. They can answer some today, the other time they can add their answers, whatever. The layout for internet questionnaire using some softwares like graphical user interface, paging layout going from screen to screen. Scrolling layout gives the respondents the ability to scroll down or go from any question to question. Push the pattern, which is going to be the answers, and it's going to be collected electronically. Status bar. So a lot of things which can ease the questionnaire. So this is an online survey. The question is, how satisfied are you with the following magazines? So they are going to give you, for example, Time, the Newsweek. So you are going to choose any of these Likert scale options, either very dissatisfied, for example, very satisfied, or even neutral, and then push, or you can go for this button, which is next page. It will move you to the next page and until you finish the questionnaire. The questionnaire needs to be pre-tested. When you finish preparing the questionnaire, following the rules and the guidelines and the points, the guidelines we have just talked about, you need to pre-test the questionnaire. And the pre-test involves conducting a dry run of the survey on a small representative set of respondents. So I will choose a small number of the respondents and try to give them the questionnaire for validity, for example, whether it is clear or not, and to try whether it is reliable or not. So to reveal questionnaire error before the survey is going to be launched. It is important to pre-test on respondents that are representative of targets population to be studied. The pre-testing process seeks to determine whether the respondents have any difficulty understanding the questionnaire. And this is what we talked about last time, which is the face validity. So the potential or the representative respondents are going to read and tell the researcher whether there are some of the questions are not clear, or whether there are any ambiguous or biased questions. So it can be changed. Preliminary tabulation of results of pretest to help determine whether questionnaire will meet the objectives of research or not, and this is also very, very important. So in this class, or in this session, we learned, we hope that we learned the following issues or topics. So explaining the significance of decision about the questionnaire design, also summarizing the guidelines for questions to make good questionnaire. As we said, the good questionnaire is dependent on the questions asked. Describing how proper sequence of question improve a questionnaire, and also discussing how to design the questionnaire layout and describing criteria for pre-testing questionnaire. The assignment for this session is going to be attached and uploaded in the LMS along with this video. We comes to the end of this session number 8 for Business Research Methods course. I hope we have explained and talked about the questionnaire quality and design, basic considerations, and we said that we don't have templates for this. We have only guidelines, and I hope these guidelines are clear and understood by you. And also we have talked about the wordings of questions using a good language that can be understood by the respondents and by the participants in the questionnaire, which is very important, so you can guarantee an accurate data. Also, we have talked about the guidelines of constructing questions and also the best question sequence, which is very important, and also the layout of the questionnaire and the pre-testing of the questionnaire. I hope this is can be beneficial to you while preparing or when you prepare your own questionnaire for your own research. So thank you very much for listening, and thank you very much for watching this session, and thank you.